Welcome to the Startup of the Year podcast, where each episode we showcase exciting new companies from around the world. This podcast is produced by Established, creators of the Startup of the Year program. Established is focused on helping organizations with their innovation, startup, and communication strategies. Thank you to our podcast sponsor, Silicon Valley Bank.
Hello everybody, it's Frank Gruber. It's the Startup of the Year podcast. Welcome back. Thanks for being a listener. We got an exciting show today. It's a special episode, different format. We've got Rich Malloy, our co-host. He's going to be interviewing JP Giannini from Silicon Valley Bank. They'll be talking about some of the things they do in startup land, as well as some of the advice he gives to startups with over a decade of experience doing so. So let's listen in.
Hey, this is Rich Malloy with the Startup of the Year podcast, and I'm here today with JP Giannini from Silicon Valley Bank. How's it going, JP?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And so did I get the name pronunciation right? Even though I'm not Italian?
Yeah, no, that was perfect.
How do they pronounce it in Italy?
So in Italy, it's Giannini. So yeah, I've been saying it wrong for the majority of my life, but after I went to Italy, I came back and I've been saying it the right way. So
Giannini. All right. Giannini or Giannini, depending on whether you're an Irishman such as myself or an Italian such as yourself. So there you go. Excellent. So JP, you've been with SVB for 10 years, and I imagine that you've seen quite a bit. I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do there.
Yeah, so actually 10 years this week, so it's definitely been
cool. Congrats.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's been a great journey. I feel blessed to be part of the SVB team. Funny enough, my grandmother, who raised me, actually started working at the bank, and that's how I grew up going to company picnics, and that's how I got familiar with SVB. And awesome. my aunt previously worked at the bank, so a lot of family history. And so my role here at the bank, and I'd say for the last 7 or so years, has been on the SVB startup banking team. And so specifically working with founders, literally from incorporation up until raising that Series A round, and whether it's a first-time founder or a serial founder. And so being able to work directly with the founders at that ground level is something that, that's my daily routine. So that how can you not be excited to go to work when the people you're working with are just such brilliant people and bringing together technology that's changing the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting out and the beautiful thing about working with early stage founders is that they just have this vision and this passion for what they're doing, and see themselves as they're the only ones in the world that can solve this problem, and they really want to solve it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and I feel like everyone's had that. We've all had that moment where that aha or idea moment, but I think that we go on with our lives and forget about that moment. But the difference is that entrepreneurs, founders, they take that and they run with it and really dedicate their lives to taking it and making that journey. So that's it's inspiring to work with those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get to support them through the work that you do. And so you've met with hundreds, if not 1,000 startups or more. What's the most common piece of advice you find yourself giving to startups?
Yeah, so that's definitely a good question. I'd say that one of the most common pieces of advice that I give to early stage founders is around building their team. That's one piece. And I'd say to dive deeper on that, building your team in the sense of that your startup, it's your life, right? You're going to be, this is your journey and your mission, and making sure that as a founder, that the people that you're hiring on your team, that they're aligned with the journey and the mission that you're starting, and making sure that, if you're finding a solution to make the world a better place or to make a product better, are they joining the team because they want to have startup founder on their resume, or are they joining it because they have that same passion? Because it's definitely a long journey and a lonely journey at times, and what to be able to have that inner flame to keep you going. I think everyone needs to be aligned. And so that's one piece of it, making sure that your goals are aligned with the mission of the company, and they believe in what you're bringing to the market or improving. And then the other piece would be making sure that as founders, it's you're building the tech companies, or the companies of the future. So making sure that you are responsible in building out a diverse team to be able to have different mindsets to help challenge your thought process, right? I feel like that there's that at that ground level when you're building out the team. I think it's just the obligation of those founders to be choosing people who are on the same journey with them, and making sure that you're building out a diverse team to be able to bring the best possible solution to the world.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And those diverse perspectives can really make the difference between making or breaking, a company. But also, like you said, it's a long journey, and you need to make sure that you have the right people. It's not an easy journey, and you need to make sure you have the right people on your team, and that you're all aligned for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
I just started reading Anti-Fragile, and I know I'm probably a few years behind on that. But one of the things in early on he talks about is having a National Entrepreneur Day, and
Wow.
we should celebrate entrepreneurs like we celebrate soldiers, because you're not sacrificing your life, but you are sacrificing your livelihood to be an entrepreneur, and we see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, since being able to work with founders for, nearly 10 years, yeah, I've seen a lot of successful companies, and then a lot of companies that just go on not making it. But the what is consistent is that an entrepreneur or founder, they have that mindset, and if one thing fails, they're going to continue to find something else to work on, or they're going to join another team. And so I would I'd also encourage listeners to, if something has not worked out in the past, to again find that inner flame, and there you either have it or you don't. And I think that being able to contribute, whether it's joining another team or taking the leap to something else, but I from what I've seen, that's a common theme. And to not, it's hard to say don't be discouraged when you are in that place, but it from again, speaking from working with founders as much as I have, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And the beauty is that there are still lots of opportunities, whether it's what you're working on now, or the next thing, or somebody else's project. And so, speaking of the work that you do, and the light at the end of the tunnel, one of the things that I know that you do a lot of is connecting startups with the right folks, and including investors. And so, when you're prepping startups to go and meet with investors, what's some of the advice that you give them?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One, I'd say that a lot of times when founders are asking for introductions to investors, it's the first thing is that now more than ever, there's so much information online to find out about specific firms, family offices. There's so now more than ever, there's a lot of money out there. But I think strategically making sure that as founders that you are doing the information, gathering the information to make sure that you are reaching out to someone who is aligned with the technology you're building, I know that's key, right? So making sure that you're reaching out to, if you're building out a hardware company, that you're reaching out to a firm, if you're fundraising, that it actually invests in hardware, right? So don't just have a template that you send out to everyone and VC and try to have them figure out what you're working on. And so I would say, first thing is making sure that you are reaching out and aligning with the right investors, and it should be a relationship, right? And so making sure that they're a fit for you, so you're not wasting each other's time. The other piece, in what I think is important, is being able to, and I don't see founders a lot of times don't do this, but it's when you're an early stage company, you need to spend the time highlighting yourself. It's okay to do that, right? It's okay to highlight you, your founders, your team, and what makes you different, and be able to passionately tell your story and what is going to make you different than someone else bringing this idea to market, right? So a lot of times you'll send this clunky email and a PDF deck of 15 pages, and that I think to being able to highlight and tell your story in 3 to 5 pages on a deck, and then get that, if not shorter, right, but get the attention of that VC, and make sure again that you're highlighting your story as founders, because that's initially what a very early stage investors investing in is the team, and making sure you highlight that and your why, right? We hear so much about what's your why, and I think being able to identify that and clearly get that across in a short amount of time is very important.
Gotcha. So find the right investors, research it ahead of time, send the right information that's relevant to those investors, and highlight the team and identify your why. That's
identify
awesome.
and obviously, you want to identify the why, and then the fix in the market that you're you just at the very early stage, right? You don't have many metrics to go off of, and so I think that a lot of times people will drive straight into a deck, but it's kind of like, you have to realize too that this is initial conversation. This is an initial meeting. This isn't, you've established a relationship and you're sending over information, right? This is a first impression. So again, making sure that you're being respectful of the ask of the VC. And if you get feedback from the VC, maybe it's a little bit too early, get back to me in a month, or just making sure that they see, thousands of emails, per probably, month, right? So just making sure that you are respectful of the feedback that they give, and then that, if it is a milestone that they want to see, or if you are too early, following up, getting back to them, and making sure that that's kind of your approach. And I know it's a journey, right? Fundraising is definitely not something that you're going to complete in 1 week. And so I think just making sure take each meeting as a learning experience, and go back to the drawing board and try to strengthen that pitch, and hopefully you have a network, a trusted network that you can prior pitch to, get some feedback, so that you can go in with being able to articulate and get across that message, and have confidence in yourself, right? This is you should feel confident. This is your startup, your journey, and you should be able to feel confident in talking about it, and proud to talk about it.
Yeah, and that confidence can really also, and that pride can come from that why, right? A lot of times there's personal journeys. These are pain points that individuals have seen and identified from their personal professional journeys. And so, I know one of the startups that you met at Startup of the Year Summit in October that we just had in Memphis was Immertech, and they're would love to hear a little bit more about Immertech and their journey and your conversations with them.
Yeah, so Immertech is a SVB client, and they are based out of Florida. They had previously just won Rise of the Rest. I had and I didn't plan on when I was in Memphis meeting them, and so I ended up meeting Eric and the team, and it's just they actually ended up coming in second place. For the competition. But when I had mentioned earlier that I get to connect and talk to and work with founders who are building technology that's literally changing the world. Immertech being one of those companies, and they're utilizing they're utilizing VR, and with VR they're allowing surgeons to remotely view and trained for surgeries without having to be in the room. And so this is just huge for the industry, and just extremely impressive for what Immertech's doing.
Oh yeah. And the VR has kind of gone through the hype cycle and maybe on the downside of the hype cycle. But when you hear stories like Eric told, the founder of Immertech, told the story about how he was able to get an expert in one type of surgery onto the platform as he and this surgeon and his wife were driving down the road. They switched so that the wife was driving and the surgeon could get on to his phone, and then the surgeon in the OR could actually share that experience with the with the surgeon on the road, or maybe the surgeon on the road actually had his VR headset with him. But they were able to save a life in a complicated surgery that would have gone wrong, and that where a child's life was on the line. And it was an amazing story. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really inspirational.
no,
This is the stuff of sci-fi, right?
Yeah, no, and that's again, and I know it sounds it sounds cheesy, but again, this is the stuff that how can you not be excited to come to work and work with these founders? And I feel like you're absolutely right that there was a buzz with the VR, it dropped, but there's I feel like that when there's a passion and there is a will to find a better way for something. That's, again, you have a founder like Eric and his team that have really found a niche that it's needed, and it's saving lives, and and that's just one story, right? So that alone, it was just remarkable. I hadn't heard that story, and so being able to be in the crowd, being able to hear that story, and to know that is a founder that I had and team that I had just spoken with earlier in the day. That's kind of why we do what we do over here.
Totally, yeah, absolutely. And so, Immertech is based in Florida, and you're in the Bay Area. A lot of times we work with companies at Startup of the Year. We recruit startups from all over the world, all over the country, from, I like to say, every corner of the country, where innovation happens everywhere. But the majority of the money for fundraising really still is in the Valley, in the Bay Area. What advice would you give to founders that are thinking about coming to the Bay Area to raise some financing, raise some money?
Yeah, I would. The way I look at it is Bay Area is the the heart, but there are by going to Memphis, that opened my eyes up in general to the rest of the U.S. and what is going on throughout the Midwest and in different states, and that there is just technology and
so much activity.
Yeah, absolutely, and so strong. I think that. I think it's great that what I was able to see at the conference was just that there's just so many brilliant people throughout the U.S. and working on great things, and so it was great to be part of that. As you mentioned, I cover the Bay Area for our SVB team, but so it was great to see. just the different technologies and different verticals. But for companies that are looking to come to the Bay Area, I would say that leverage your networks. I feel like that if you can leverage your network to take advantage of whether it's a meetup that's going on, or if you're, through your service providers, if you have an accounting firm or legal team or banking partner, there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of people who are out there willing to help, but you need to ask. And I think that if it's just opening one door to, if you're here in the Bay Area and there happens to be a fireside chat with the VC going on, maybe you are able to attend that. And at that event, you happen to meet a founder who's based here, and then you connect and make that part of your network. I feel like that what is from, and again, this is coming from years of working with founders, that there's a lot founders, I feel, want to give back to the community and support other startups. And so I think that if you, and similar to yourself, right? Like maybe there is something you can offer a founder to be able to help here in the Bay Area. And so I think that if you're going to make a trip to the Bay Area, definitely kind of research what's going on as far as events, and then I wouldn't look at it as, okay, I need to go to Sand Hill Road and go walk up and down and try to, have
knock on doors.
No, exactly. I don't know how many meetings you'll get, but I would say just organically kind of take it in as an experience, meet with other founders, use those founders to leverage networks, and use your resources as the service providers that you pick. Again, I mentioned whether it's your bank, your legal team, other founders. I think just making sure that you're you take advantage of that, and then whatever meetup you can go to, just try and learn, and then most importantly, try and find a way to be able to help. That's kind of a common theme too, is that as a founder, when you're
able to give back.
Yeah, when you're able to give back, I feel like that it just it comes back to you. And yeah, I think that's the best place to start, is being able to again take advantage of any calendar of events or meetups that are going on, and start from there. Workspaces, any place you can kind of get to be able to take advantage of an event.
Yeah, and it's kind of coming back around to the what we were talking about earlier about having the right team. Is that team is, you have your immediate team that you hire and that you work with on a day-to-day basis, but then you have your next level out team, and those are your service providers, your ecosystem leaders, and these are the people that are rooting for you, that are in your corner, that are supporting you on your journey. And having that right team, having that team in place, and acknowledging that that's part of your team. I think even, those are the people that you can, startups should be reaching out to and making connections and asking for deeper connections. So
yeah,
I like
absolutely.
that. Yeah. Excellent. And so, this was your first experience with the Startup of the Year team we were in Memphis this past year for the summit. Would love to hear a little bit about your experience out, with us and meeting the startups.
Yeah, it was great. And to another Bay Area of reference, just here in the Bay Area, everything is so fast paced, right? It's just, meeting to meeting, whether it's you're grabbing coffee and your head's down, looking at your phone, getting ready to go to the next place. Literally from the time I flew into Memphis and to the hotel to meetings, it's like, people were engaging. There's, no one was really heads down on their phone. It was just it was a slower atmosphere in the sense of being present. And so it was just, I felt I was welcomed by Memphis. And so it was a beautiful, venue, beautiful, weather, just everything was great as far as the atmosphere. And then being able to, I met so many great people, right? For all different verticals and backgrounds, and very diverse crowd. and everyone was engaged and willing to help everyone else. And that's and again, to the importance of community. And so I met with so many startups, and even if it was, I don't know how much value I was able to give them, but even if it's just connecting them to someone on the SVB side that's local to where they're at, or if it's just being able to provide some insight. But I had a great chance to meet people from all over the U.S. who are working on some really incredible things, and again, wouldn't have had that opportunity if it wasn't for Startup of the Year.
Awesome. Well, we were so happy to have you out there, and glad that you had a good experience, and we could pull you out of the Bay Area and show you the awesome startups from the rest of the country.
Yeah.
So we get to see that on a daily basis, and there's amazing startups in the Bay Area. I'm one of those people. I believe that the Bay Area is in San Francisco, or it's not dying. It's not going away. It's a super important piece of the American economy, and fully support the activity that's happening out there, the good activity that's happening out there, and it drives the rest of the country. But with that, and that goes hand in hand with the activity that happens outside of the Bay Area. So
yeah,
it takes all of that to keep moving the economy forward and making change and making a difference in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's great. Yeah, and so JP, I'm gonna steal a line from my friend Elizabeth Krause and her podcast, the Fund 81 podcast, where she invites her listeners to be as self-serving as possible. And so I'd like to invite you to be as self-serving as possible. And if that would be one thing, what would that be?
Yeah, so I encourage your listeners to, if you're not familiar with Silicon Valley Bank, definitely go to svb.com, check out our SVB Startup Banking page, and kind of outlines our services. And there's definitely insights and trends that are, I think, going to be super beneficial to founders. And I think that if there's any interest in learning more about SVB, I cover the Bay Area, so happy to work with those founders. Or if it's just, again, this might flood my inbox, but I'm part of my value add is being able to give back and help connect the dots where I can. So happy to do so, and just be a support to listeners, and to help where I can.
Awesome. That's great. SVB has a great reputation in many communities. I live in the Colorado community, and they have wonderful people out here that add a lot of value. We're grateful for Startup of the Year. We're grateful for SVB's support on our podcasts and our newsletters. And so, that's just one way that Silicon Valley Bank is giving back to the community. And going to, if our listeners want to go to svb.com/next, you can get monthly insights, startup insights in your inbox, and get connected with the right person from their banking team. So JP, thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed the conversation. Wish we had more time. Wish we had more time today. Wish we had more time to spend in Memphis. We only had a quick 30-second hello there, but it was a busy week.
Absolutely busy in a good way. And so, again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I definitely left a better and smarter man, and it was just a great event. And so, again, thank you to you and your team.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, that was great. Thanks so much, Rich. Thank you, JP. Really appreciate you joining us today. All right, we're coming to an end here. But before we do, I'd like to share a little bit about one of our partners, American Airlines. I'm a big traveler. I'm always traveling, and I always do it on American Airlines. So I wanted to share a little bit more about what they're up to. With American Airlines, you can give your company's travel budget a lift. American Airlines Business Extra is a rewards program for companies that can help get the most out of your travel budget. It's free to join with no minimum flight or spend commitments. The more you fly with American Airlines and their partners, the more Business Extra points you earn. Points can be redeemed for round-trip flights, cabin upgrades, Advantage Gold status, Admiral Club memberships or passes. And your employees can continue to earn Advantage miles, and your company earns Business Extra points at the same time. It's a win-win. Doesn't your business deserve something extra? So there you have it. We wouldn't be able to do episodes like this without the support of Silicon Valley Bank and American Airlines. Thank you both. All right, that does it for episode 15. I'm Frank Gruber. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you join us again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Startup of the Year podcast. Be sure to subscribe and we'll be back with another episode soon.